So I want you to think about your own life for just a second. Like,
Yeah.
if you can, just pause whatever you're doing or thinking about and ask yourself a really, really simple question.
And it is a tough one, actually.
It is. The question is, do you think you were happier as a kid, or are you happier right now, today, as an adult?
Yeah, people almost always have this immediate knee-jerk reaction to that. I
Yeah.
mean, they instantly picture themselves at, say, 7 or 8 years old.
Right.
Maybe they're riding a bicycle in the summer or playing outside, and they just say, childhood, definitely childhood. I was so much happier back then.
I hear that all the time, but, it makes you wonder if that is actually the whole truth, or if human memory is just playing a very clever trick on us.
Oh, it definitely plays tricks on us.
Right. Like, we tend to romanticize the past. We put this warm, golden filter over our younger years. So today, we are going to carefully unpack the reality behind that feeling.
I love this topic. It's such a fascinating deep dive.
It really is. We are going to look closely at the carefree nature of being young and compare it to the heavy, complicated freedom of growing up. And ultimately, we want to figure out how the actual definition of happiness changes as we age.
Because it is a profound shift. And to really understand it, you can't just look at who smiles more.
Yeah.
Kids versus adults.
Yeah, that's too simple.
Right. You have to look at the underlying architecture of a person's life at those different stages. You really have to look at what they are carrying on their shoulders.
Okay, let's start right there, actually, with what we carry. Or, I guess, what kids do not carry.
Yes, the lack of baggage.
Exactly. When people say they miss being a child, the core reason they usually give is simplicity. Life was just simpler.
That is the word that always comes up. Simple.
Yeah. And our sources point out something very foundational here. Kids simply do not have the same burdens that adults have. I mean, they don't have bills to pay.
Right.
They don't have major financial or social responsibilities weighing them down.
Try to actually imagine the mental state of not knowing what a bill is.
Oh, wow, yeah. That's hard to even picture now.
I know, right? For a young child, money is just a concept. It's not a stressor. A house is just a place that exists to keep the rain off your head.
It's just background scenery.
Exactly. They do not wake up feeling that immense, crushing pressure of maintaining an entire life. There's no background anxiety about, say, the cost of electricity.
Or whether the roof needs repairing.
Right. All of that cognitive load, and by that I mean the mental energy required to just keep a household running. All of that is entirely handled by someone else.
Handled by the parents.
Exactly.
The phrase that really stood out to me from the materials we reviewed is that a child lives in a smaller world.
Yes, I love that phrasing.
I want to spend some time on what that actually means for our listeners, because it is so true. A child's world is physically small, but it is also mentally small.
Very small.
And because the world is small, the problems are small too.
Think about the geography of a typical childhood. Your entire universe might just consist of your house, your school, and maybe the local park.
Or a friend's house down the street, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And if things are generally okay in those three places, then as far as you are concerned, the entire universe is at peace.
You aren't worried about the global economy or international politics?
No, not at all. Your perimeter, like the boundary of your world, is just really small.
And so the things that cause you stress have to fit inside that small perimeter.
Okay.
So what does a big problem look like to a 9-year-old?
It's usually pretty basic stuff.
Right. It is usually just doing your homework, or maybe passing a spelling test, or simply hoping your parents will say yes when you ask to go outside and play.
Let's actually look at the anatomy of that worry, hoping your parents let you go outside.
Okay, let's break that down.
It is incredibly straightforward. The obstacle between you and happiness is just getting a yes from an adult. You ask the question, you feel a moment of suspense.
And once they say yes, the problem is instantly solved.
Exactly. The happiness that follows is immediate. There is no lingering anxiety. You are out the door and you are running. We often call these simple joys.
Simple joys. I really like that term. Happiness used to come from things that were highly accessible, like they were easy to reach.
Very low barrier to entry.
Yeah. You didn't need to save up money for 6 months, buy a plane ticket, and travel across the world just to feel relaxed or joyful.
Right. Joy was just right there in the living room on a Saturday morning watching cartoons.
Or in the backyard playing a made-up game with a friend.
Those simple joys are possible because of a very specific psychological state.
Oh, this is the part about self-awareness, right?
Yes. If we look at the underlying mechanism of why it is so easy to feel joy as a kid, It really comes down to this concept of self-awareness.
And just to clarify for everyone, self-awareness is basically our ability to think about ourselves, right?
Exactly. It's the ability to judge our own actions and to constantly evaluate our place in the world.
Like thinking, how am I doing right now? What do people think of me?
Precisely. Adults have a very high level of self-awareness. Kids, on the other hand, have very little of it.
But wait, how does having less self-awareness lead to more joy? Because, I mean, in most areas of life, we think of awareness as a good thing.
We do.
We are taught that being self-aware makes you a better person. It almost seems backwards to say that lacking it makes you happier.
I know, it does seem counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But think about what extreme self-awareness actually feels like in your daily life.
It's exhausting, honestly.
Right. It is that voice in your head that says, do I look silly doing this? Or should I be doing something more productive right now?
Oh, the productivity guilt is real.
So real. But because children lack that constant internal critic, they're not overthinking everything they do.
If a child wants to spin around in circles until they fall dizzy on the grass, they just do it.
They really just do it.
Yeah.
They aren't looking around to see if anyone is judging them.
They aren't worrying about grass stains on their clothes either.
No, they are entirely present in the current moment. They just exist.
They just exist. That completely changes how you experience time. I want to share an analogy that I think perfectly captures this difference between childhood and adulthood.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
It's like the difference between floating in a swimming pool versus having to actively swim.
Okay, I like where this is going.
When you are a kid, you are just floating. The water around you, which represents your parents, your teachers, the whole structure of your school, that water is holding you up.
Yes, you don't have to do any work to stay on the surface.
Exactly. You just get to lie back, look up at the clouds, and feel the sun on your face.
That captures the essence of it beautifully. You are entirely supported by invisible forces.
Invisible to the child, at least.
Right. The child does not see the effort the parents are making to keep the water calm. They just get to enjoy the floating.
But as adults, we are actively swimming.
Oh, we are treading water so hard.
We have to constantly kick our legs and move our arms just to keep our heads above the water. If we stop swimming, we start to sink.
And that swimming motion is the constant effort of going to work, paying the bills, cooking the meals, and managing relationships.
It takes constant physical and mental effort.
And when you are constantly kicking just to survive,
Yeah.
it is very, very hard to appreciate the sunshine.
Right. But, and here is where I want to push back a little bit on this perfect sunny picture of childhood we're painting.
Okay, let's push back.
Because we are talking about floating in a pool and watching cartoons. But is it possible that we only remember the floating part because we have conveniently forgotten the bad parts?
That is a very valid point.
Like, are we editing our own history to make it look better than it was?
We absolutely are. Human memory is highly selective.
It filters out the bad stuff.
Essentially, yes. We are designed to remember the warm, sunny days of playing outside, and we tend to smooth over or completely forget the moments of intense frustration.
So if we really want to answer the question of whether we were happier as kids, we have to deeply deconstruct this memory of the perfect childhood.
We have to look at the whole picture, not just the highlights reel.
Right. So let's look at the reality of being a child. Were we actually happier, or does our brain just paint a pretty idealized picture of the past?
To get at the truth, we need to talk about another very important concept from our sources: control.
Control. Or, more accurately, a child's complete and total lack of it.
Exactly. This is the shadow side of childhood.
The shadow side.
Yeah, the dark side we tend to forget.
Mm.
When you are young, your life decisions are entirely made for you by other people. You do not have autonomy.
And autonomy just means the ability to make your own choices, right?
Yes. And kids have none. You couldn't choose where you lived or what school you went to.
You couldn't choose what time you went to sleep or what you ate for dinner.
You didn't even really choose who you spent the majority of your time with. I mean, you were just placed in the classroom with 20 other children and told you had to get along with them.
And when you actually think back to how that felt, that lack of control can be incredibly frustrating.
So frustrating.
I want you, the listener, to try to remember a specific time in your own childhood. Can you recall a moment when you felt deeply angry or totally unfairly treated simply because you had no voice?
It's a very common experience.
Because you had absolutely no power to change a situation you hated.
It is a very helpless feeling. Maybe you were forced to sit at the dinner table until you finished a food that actually made you feel sick.
Oh, I hated that. Or maybe you were dragged along on boring errands for hours when you just wanted to stay home and read a book.
In those moments, childhood does not feel like floating in a pool.
No, not at all.
Feels like being trapped in a moving car where you can't even touch the steering wheel.
And we have to be very honest here, too, because this brings up a serious reality check about the sources we're discussing.
Yes, it's important to frame this correctly.
A happy, carefree childhood is not universal. And by universal, I mean it doesn't apply to everyone everywhere. We have to be careful not to paint with too broad a brush.
That is a vital distinction to make.
Saying everyone was happier as a kid implies that everyone had a safe place to grow up, which simply isn't true.
No, it's not. The idealized childhood of simple joys is really a privilege.
Yeah.
For many people, their early years involved difficult, unpredictable, or even dangerous environments. Kids can deal with intense stress, family conflicts, poverty, or immense academic pressure.
And the anxiety in those situations is actually magnified because of that lack of control we just talked about.
That's exactly right. If an adult is in a toxic environment, they can theoretically leave.
They can quit a job or move to a new city.
Exactly. A child cannot. They're entirely dependent on the adults around them, for better or for worse.
So if childhood essentially means having absolutely no control over the direction of your own life, then the ultimate goal of growing up must be getting that control back.
That is the big transition.
You turn 18 or 21, you get your first job, and suddenly the doors open. You are no longer trapped in the back seat.
You're finally in the driver's seat.
Let's explore what actually happens when we finally get that control.
Well, this transition brings us to the defining characteristic of adulthood mentioned in our text.
Freedom.
Freedom. It sounds so great.
It does. But it is essential to understand that adult freedom is a double-edged sword.
Meaning it has good and bad consequences.
Right. It has two sides. It gives you incredible power, but it can also cause you a lot of pain.
Let's look at the positive side of that sword first. The pure joy of autonomy. As an adult, you are your own boss.
You finally get to make your own decisions, no matter how small or how massive they are.
The small decisions are often the first real tastes of adult joy, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. You decide what you want to eat. If you decide that you want to eat a huge bowl of ice cream at 7 in the morning on a Tuesday, you can just do it.
There's no parent there to stop you.
Exactly. You decide what time to turn off the lights. You decide what clothes to wear.
I remember the first time I went to a grocery store entirely by myself after moving out.
How'd it feel? I realized I could buy whatever I wanted. The sheer dizzying freedom of walking down the cereal aisle and knowing I was the ultimate authority was incredible.
It's a great feeling.
But of course, adult happiness goes much deeper than breakfast foods. The material we are exploring describes adult happiness as being more meaningful.
Meaningful, yes.
What does that mean in practice? How is it more meaningful?
Well, meaningful happiness is tied directly to effort and choice. As an adult, the joy you experience is often the direct result of something you built with your own hands.
Like working towards something difficult.
Yes. Think about achieving a long-term goal. Maybe it took you 4 difficult years of studying late at night to get a university degree.
Or maybe you worked extra hours and saved money for 5 years to buy a small house or even start a business.
When you finally cross that finish line, the happiness you feel is profound. It is heavy, in a good way.
It isn't just a fleeting moment of joy like catching a ball.
No, it is a deep, resonant satisfaction because you earned it. You made the choices, you did the work, and you made it happen.
Another perfect example of meaningful adult joy is building relationships.
Yes, that is a big one.
Remember earlier when we talked about kids just being assigned to a classroom?
Forced proximity.
Yeah, they are essentially forced to be friends with whoever happens to sit next to them. But adults get to curate their social circles.
You get to intentionally find people who share your values.
People who understand your sense of humor and who support your goals.
And when you build a friendship or a partnership based on mutual choice, the connection is incredibly deep.
It is, but we have to look at the other side of that double-edged sword now.
The sharp edge.
We have to contrast this beautiful, meaningful freedom with the harsh realities of being the one in charge.
Because it is not all sunshine.
No. Because as soon as you have the power to make your own choices, you also have the burden of dealing with the consequences. The responsibilities of adulthood hit you very fast.
They hit you from every direction simultaneously.
It's like you graduate and boom, life is happening.
Suddenly, you are not just managing your own ice cream consumption. You are managing your career. You are managing rent, or a mortgage.
You are responsible for maintaining those relationships you chose.
And, perhaps heaviest of all, you are managing expectations.
Oh, the weight of expectations is enormous.
It really is.
There is a constant humming pressure in adulthood to succeed. Like, society expects you to have a respectable job.
Your family might expect you to get married or have children,
And even if you ignore society and family, you have your own internal expectations.
which can be the harshest ones.
There is this persistent anxiety that you need to somehow figure out your life, as if life is a puzzle that you were supposed to solve by age 30.
And you are constantly measuring your progress against the people around you, too.
Oh, social media makes that so much worse.
It does. You look at a friend who just bought a new car or someone online who just got a major promotion, and suddenly your own freedom feels like a competition that you are losing.
And this pressure leads directly to one of the biggest psychological traps of adulthood: overthinking.
Which brings us right back to that concept of self-awareness we discussed earlier.
Right. When we were kids, a lack of self-awareness allowed us to just exist.
But as adults, our extremely high level of self-awareness becomes a heavy burden.
It acts like an overdrive engine in our brains. Because we know we are responsible for our lives, we constantly analyze the past.
We lie awake in bed wondering, did I make a mistake taking this job 3 years ago?
Or did I say the wrong thing to my boss today?
Then we project our anxiety into the future. What will happen if the economy crashes? Will I have enough money to retire? What if I get sick?
We second guess almost every daily decision. Did I pay that bill on time? Am I saving enough money? Is my diet healthy enough?
It never stops.
And this constant mental noise, this endless loop of analyzing the past and fearing the future, it completely ruins our ability to just enjoy the present moment.
That is exactly why it is so hard for an adult to just sit on the couch and enjoy a Saturday morning cartoon.
The kid is just watching the bright colors on the screen.
But the adult is looking at the screen, and their brain is generating a to-do list.
The house needs vacuuming. There are 3 unread emails from work.
The car needs an oil change, and the dog needs to go to the vet.
It is exhausting. To summarize this massive shift from childhood to adulthood, let's explore an analogy.
Is this the car analogy?
Yes. Growing up is essentially like being handed the steering wheel to a car. It is an absolutely amazing feeling because you are finally out of the back seat.
You can drive wherever you want. The whole world is open to you.
You choose the destination. You choose the route. You choose the music on the radio.
Exactly.
But it is also terrifying because now you are the one who has to pay for the gas to keep the car moving.
And you have to fix the engine when it inevitably breaks down on the side of the road.
Yes. You have to stay perfectly focused to navigate all the crazy, dangerous traffic around you. And if you take a wrong turn and get lost, there is no one else to blame. It is entirely your fault.
The child is just a passenger. They have no power, but they also have zero responsibility.
They can just look out the window at the passing trees.
Right. But the adult driver has all the power in the world while carrying the immense stress of keeping the car safely on the road.
So where does this leave us? If childhood has no control and adulthood has way too much pressure, how do we even begin to compare the two?
It seems like an impossible comparison, doesn't it?
It really does. But our sources suggest a really profound answer to this dilemma. They suggest that asking which one is happier is actually the wrong question entirely.
Because that question assumes that happiness is exactly the same thing at age 8 and age 38.
And that we are just measuring the quantity of it, like who has more.
Exactly. But it is not the same thing. The types of happiness are fundamentally different. The texture of the joy changes.
The texture of the joy. Let's break down these 2 different types of happiness. We can categorize them broadly as lighter happiness versus deeper happiness.
That's a helpful way to frame it.
Let's look at the childhood side first. A child's joy is described as lighter and, most importantly, spontaneous.
Spontaneous is the perfect word to understand childhood joy.
And just to clarify, if something is spontaneous, it happens naturally, right?
Yes, completely on its own, without any planning or scheduling. It is a sudden, unpredictable burst of energy or emotion.
Like when a kid walks outside, sees a strange-looking bug on the sidewalk, and is instantly fascinated.
They chase a butterfly. They find a good climbing tree.
That joy just hits them out of nowhere. It happens easily, it happens automatically, and it requires absolutely zero effort to create.
Now compare that spontaneous joy to the adulthood side. Adult happiness is much deeper, but it is far more complicated.
This feels like the most critical difference between the 2 stages of life.
It really is. For adults, Joy rarely just happens spontaneously.
You don't usually walk out your front door, see a bug, and feel a rush of pure euphoria.
No, mostly you just hope the bug doesn't get into the house.
Exactly. Because of all that mental noise and responsibility we talked about, adults have to actively create their moments of joy.
You have to do the work to make the joy happen.
You have to spend weeks planning a vacation, booking the flights, and arranging the hotel.
You have to check your calendar, text 3 different friends, find a date that works for everyone, and make a restaurant reservation just to have a good dinner together.
You even have to intentionally set aside time just to sit and rest. Otherwise, your chores will consume your whole weekend.
So life becomes a series of trade-offs. As we age, we lose certain things, but we gain other things.
Let's look exactly at what we lose first. We clearly lose that sense of ease.
Life is no longer effortless. The water in the pool is no longer holding us up. We have to swim.
But we also lose something else very important: our curiosity.
Yes, the loss of curiosity is huge.
And why do we lose curiosity? Because when you are a kid, the entire world is brand new.
Everything is a first.
The first time you see snow fall from the sky, it is a massive, magical, life-altering discovery.
The first time you taste a really sweet strawberry, your brain explodes with how good it is. The world is full of firsts.
But as adults, we have seen snow 100 times. We know the science of how it forms. We know it means we have to shovel the driveway.
We have eaten 1,000 strawberries. The novelty, meaning the feeling of newness, wears off.
The world becomes familiar, and familiarity breeds a certain kind of boredom.
We stop looking closely at the things around us because we think we already understand them.
But thankfully, while we lose that constant novelty, we gain something incredibly valuable in return.
What is the gain here?
We gain understanding. We gain perspective.
Perspective.
Perspective is your ability to see the big picture of life. It is your ability to understand how different events connect to each other.
To see that a bad day isn't the end of the world.
Exactly. And to appreciate the complex beauty of human relationships.
You trade the intense, sudden thrill of a new toy for the quiet, deep satisfaction of a lasting friendship or a hard-earned achievement.
To summarize this massive shift in how we experience the world, growing up is a transition from being a passive receiver of happiness to an active creator of happiness.
Passive receiver versus active creator. That is a great way to put it.
I really want to emphasize that transition because it changes everything. As a child, you are a passive receiver. Happiness is just handed to you by the world. It rains down on you.
Like floating in the pool.
Right. But as an adult, you are an active creator. You have to build the machinery of your own happiness.
You have to gather the materials, design the blueprint, and put it together yourself.
It takes a lot of effort.
It does. But precisely because it takes effort, the reward is a much deeper, more profound sense of satisfaction.
It is the difference between being handed a painting to look at and actually painting the picture yourself.
Which brings us to a fascinating question.
Yeah.
Now that we understand that adults have to actively build their happiness, is it possible for adults to ever feel as happy as they did when they were kids?
Can we ever get back to that feeling of pure, unburdened joy?
The insights we are looking at give a very hopeful yes to that question.
That is good news.
But there is a catch. It won't happen in the exact same way it did when we were 8 years old.
Because we cannot erase our self-awareness.
Right. We can't magically forget about our bills and just go back to floating in the pool.
We still have to swim. We still have to drive the car.
So how do we find that joy while we are driving?
The answer lies in the power of intention.
Intention, which is really the opposite of being spontaneous.
Exactly. Intention means doing something on purpose, deliberately, with a clear goal in mind.
Because adult lives are overflowing with work, chores, and responsibilities, joy will not just magically appear in your living room.
You must purposely make space in your busy life for it.
And what does making space actually look like?
Well, making space means literally defending your time. It means blocking out an hour on your calendar and refusing to schedule anything else.
Protecting your free time.
Yeah. It means having the courage to say no to extra work or obligations so you can simply rest.
And once you have made that space, how do you fill it?
The first step is intentionally reconnecting with simple joys.
We talked about simple joys earlier, the things that are easy to reach.
As adults, we get caught up in the idea that happiness has to be big and expensive.
We think we need a 2-week vacation in a luxury resort or a brand new car to feel happy.
But we need to remember the quiet power of simple things.
Like making a really good cup of coffee in the morning.
Yes. And just sitting in silence for 10 minutes before looking at your phone.
Or taking a slow walk in a nearby park without listening to a podcast or thinking about work, just noticing the trees.
Or calling a friend you haven't spoken to in a while. Not because you need anything, but just to hear their voice and laugh together.
Those moments don't cost money, but they require intention to notice them.
The second vital step is learning to not take everything so incredibly seriously.
Oh, this is a hard one for adults.
Because we carry the heavy weight of adulthood, we have trained ourselves to treat every single email, every single minor mistake, or every tiny inconvenience as an absolute disaster.
Someone cuts us off in traffic, and it ruins our entire morning.
A meeting gets rescheduled, and we feel stressed.
What happens if we just let some of those things go?
What happens if we allow ourselves to be a little bit silly? Essentially, we need to learn lessons from our younger selves.
It is a beautiful inversion of how we usually think about aging.
What do you mean?
Well, we spend all this time and energy teaching children how to be adults. We teach them how to be responsible, how to sit still, how to plan for the future.
Right.
But perhaps adults desperately need to be taught how to be children again.
We need to invite our inner child to come along for the ride.
I love that image.
You are still driving the car, you are still paying for the gas, but maybe you can let that inner kid pick the music and sing loudly with the windows down.
That brings all of these ideas together perfectly. The ultimate conclusion of our exploration today is really a matter of balance.
Balance between the two stages.
Yes, kids might feel happier more easily because their joy takes absolutely no effort. It is light, it is unburdened, and it is beautifully spontaneous.
But it comes at the cost of having no real power over their own lives.
Adults, on the other hand, possess the potential for a much deeper, richer kind of happiness.
We have the wide perspective to understand what truly matters.
We have the powerful autonomy to choose our own paths, build our own homes, and select our own families.
We just have to use our self-awareness, that same mental tool that causes us so much stress, to make a conscious effort.
We have to be aware enough to say, I am working too hard, I need to stop and play.
We keep the power and freedom of the adult, but we intentionally practice the curiosity and playfulness of the child.
What an incredibly deep and nuanced way to look at our lives.
Let's briefly recap the journey we have just taken for everyone listening.
Good idea.
We started by looking at the small, simple, spontaneous world of childhood. We saw a world where we floated effortlessly, supported by others.
But also a world where we had very little control, and where a lack of control could sometimes cause immense anxiety.
Then we transitioned into the vast, free, but often overwhelming world of adulthood.
We saw that adulthood brings the heavy, exhausting weight of expectations, financial burdens, and constant overthinking.
But it also brings the beautiful, unmatched power of autonomy and the ability to build meaningful, chosen relationships.
And finally, we learned that the secret to a happy life isn't desperately wishing we could go back in time to being 8 years old.
No, the secret is learning to be an active creator of our own joy by using intention.
It is about building a life where adult responsibilities and childlike curiosity can exist in the same exact space.
It requires work, but it is the most rewarding work you can do.
It is always valuable to take these big concepts and figure out how to actually apply them to our daily routines.
Exactly. We discussed the idea that adult happiness requires intention and actively making space. So I want to leave you, our listener, with a question to ponder this week.
A little homework assignment.
A fun one, though. What is one small, completely non-serious, childlike activity that you could intentionally schedule into your busy adult life?
Think about that.
If we have to actively create our joy now, maybe it starts with simply giving ourselves permission to play again.
Making space for play isn't a distraction from adult life. It is a necessary part of surviving it.
It really is. And it could be anything. Maybe it's buying a box of crayons and drawing a picture without worrying if it looks good.
Maybe it's finding a swing set at the local park and swinging as high as you can.
Or maybe it's just waking up early on a Saturday, pouring a bowl of sugary cereal and watching a cartoon.
Whatever it is, do it on purpose.
So we turn the core question back to you. After exploring all the beautiful simplicity of youth and the heavy, meaningful freedom of growing up, do you think you were happier as a kid, or are you happier right now?
And as you look back at the long timeline of your own journey, what do you think changed the most for you?
Take some time to really think about it. Until next time, keep reflecting, keep learning, and make sure you keep making space for joy.